Only 27% of Americans supported gay marriage in 1996. But now, just 25 years later, that number has tripled to 75%. 75% of Americans now support gay marriage. And in 2015, we amended the Constitution and made gay marriage a legally protected activity. We're taking this seriously, and because we're so passionate about it, and because people realize the urgency of the situation as soon as they see the slaughterhouse videos, I'm confident that things will change
Yeah.
faster than people think. So give it the next 10, 20, 30 years, and you're going to start seeing those small progressive cities outlawing animal products and slaughterhouses and banning meat, dairy, and eggs and going vegan, and then other bigger cities taking it on, other states, and then a federal law, and then other countries are going to take it up as well.
I think that in a perfect world, that yes, meat should be illegal, but that we don't live in a perfect world.
Okay, that's true. Okay, let's take like human rights, right? Like
Yeah.
in a perfect world, child abuse would be illegal. But we don't live in a perfect world, so we shouldn't even try to
Yeah.
make child abuse illegal. It's just like suppose child abuse was legal, would we use that excuse or that reason? It used to be, like you used to be able to
Yeah.
beat your kid relentlessly, so let's transport back to then, or imagine that society, changed the laws and now it's okay to beat your kids. Should we just accept that, or
But
should we fight against it?
who benefits? I think it's perfectly fine to fight against it. Like I think it's great, but I think that in this case, we're not the people with power.
Well, I got news. I
Because
got.
uh,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
because I feel like you're never going to be able to get enough people to switch over to veganism that it has enough of an effect. And
Okay.
then,
Okay. Well, I think I have good news for you because it sounds like you care. It sounds like this is something you want. You just don't.
I love animals. Like,
Cool.
I will admit, I eat meat. I don't shop for myself. Um, so, um, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
I would
ideologically.
love it if meat was illegal.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So let's look at other social justice movements like the women's right to vote movement or the civil rights movement to end racial segregation. Blacks weren't allowed to sit in whites only sections of restaurants and buses and stuff up until 1964, when the Civil Rights Act was passed. Take gay marriage, right? Gay people were horrifically oppressed, beaten, and killed often for thousands of years. And yet, with all these movements, what we see is just in recent times, a small group of dedicated activists in all of those movements, uh, binding together and fighting tooth and nail for justice, demanding their rights, and no longer being willing to be pushed around and being willing to make sacrifices. And a lot of them went to jail. They were beaten. They were murdered. And a lot of them just educated people. And so not all activism has to be like life and death kind of thing, but there's lots of different ways to spread a positive message that alleviates victims from unnecessary brutality. So societies can and do change, and for the better in many ways. All like multiple countries. So Steven Pinker has said, he's a sociologist who did a lot of research on the levels of violence, like human on human violence throughout the world, throughout our history. And his research is showing that violence is decreasing. It's called, the book is called The Better Angels of Our Nature. So human on human violence is decreasing as the years go by, the hundreds of years and stuff. So I think the same thing is going to start happening with animals. Right now, we're probably torturing and killing more animals than we ever have in history because of industrialization and factory farming and fast food, and people getting addicted to meat and dairy and eggs and eating more of it than they used to. But the point is here, I have hope for humanity that, I believe people do care. For the most part, most people that I've talked to do care about truth and justice and animals, and they don't want to watch animals be slaughtered. They'd rather have the same foods without an animal dying. Like they would prefer that. And so we just got to get them hooked on the vegan burgers and help them realize that animals' lives are more important than our taste buds, and that just because they were born into a different body isn't a justification for us to harm them or take their lives from them. So what do you think about all that?
I agree, but I feel like meat is kind of more on the scale of like guns, because when you say something like, I guess like mine is slavery, but that was a long time ago, who's really benefiting from taking or gaining like rights for women or what's the other thing? Gay marriage. People, there's nobody who's losing anything there
No, I would.
except crazy people.
Yeah,
But
but
in this case, it's like there
the,
are people who are going to be able to lose. Like I don't think whoever owns McDonald's would be very happy about not being able to cheaply sell this meat. And the thing about our government, or assuming you're American too,
yeah,
is that it's very corrupt.
for sure.
Like, whether or not it should be illegal, they're not going to make it illegal because people will pay them millions of dollars to so they can benefit from killing these animals.
Sure. I'm not saying we're not up against a big, formidable adversary, but nevertheless, there, there was a vested interest in the majority of the population to keep women subjugated to men. There was a vested interest in the majority of the population to keep blacks from having equal rights and to keep gay people from being allowed to marry because these predominantly like white men, right, wanted to maintain power and control and dominance, right, because it makes them feel like a big tough guy. That's all it is, right? It's all about control. And when you're living a lie and not really living for the benefit of others, then you have to come up with this facade of power and steal power from others who are weaker than you. So I just like again want to reaffirm that society evolves. We get together and we realize that this is not okay, and times are changing. People like 1/3 of Britons drink plant milks now. 1/3 of Britons drink plant milk, and then trying to think of some other statistics. But I mean, we banned fur in California because of the animal cruelty. We took down a $40 million per year industry with just 300
Really?
activists. Yeah, yeah, just 300 activists in the span of like 3 years took down a $40 million per year industry of the fur industry in California. What they did was they started with and this is how it's going to work with all animal products, right? And with slaughterhouses and stuff. Is we're going to start with a small progressive city, like what happened with fur. So we started with West Hollywood in California, and the activists, just a small group of activists, not even the whole 300, right? Just a small group of activists approached their local politicians in West Hollywood about animal rights and fur and this cruelty and how we don't need this and we're a progressive city and we're against animal cruelty. So the enough of the people on their city council, the politicians, were animal lovers, and so they banned fur in West Hollywood. And then the activists did the exact same thing in Berkeley, California, another small progressive city. And then the activist went to San Francisco, which is a big progressive, relatively progressive, big metropolitan tourist attraction. Huge fur industry, like lots of fancy fur industry, like Gucci and Calvin Klein and whatever else that were selling fur there. But the politicians stayed on our side, right? And we banned the sale of fur in San Francisco. And then we went to Los Angeles, and Los Angeles got to keep up with San Francisco, and so they passed it in LA as well. And then finally, we took this bill, this legislation, to the governor of the state of California, and he signed it. Governor Gavin Newsom. Say what you want about him for any other policies, but right on, pat on the back for banning fur. So it's illegal. I mean, I think the companies were given like a 1 or 2 year phase out period, which is not what the animals deserve, but it makes it a smoother transition for these companies and So they've got time to get the fur that they have in their building off the shelves, to sell it and not buy anymore because it's going out of style and it's going out of business and it's illegal. So, and then other states are introducing copycat legislation, like New York and Hawaii and I think Washington, etc., want to ban fur in their states as well, since California was able to do it. Israel just banned the sale of fur in the entire country because of the animal cruelty. That happened like 2 months ago. So we're not going to stop. And there's no difference between killing an animal. Like a lot of meat eaters agree with the California fur ban, which is cool, but kind of hypocritical, because the thing is, there's no difference between killing an animal for their fur versus killing an animal for their meat. Either way, it's unnecessary animal cruelty committed simply for selfish pleasure. Whether it's the pleasure of wearing a coat that we don't need, and just having that vanity and style, or whether it's the pleasure of our taste buds, eating some dead flesh of some murder victim. So if you're against the fur industry, you should be against all of these animal exploitation industries. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. I just feel like it's a hard choice also. Especially for like poor families, like really poor families. I feel like just we have America's a huge problem, like altogether. I think that there's issues we need to fix first, and then once we kind of get past that, it would, kind of be a next step.
Okay, well,
Like,
I just want to say, like, Martin Luther King Jr. had a great quote where he said that justice delayed is justice denied. And that was his response to his allies, like white preachers who were for the civil rights movement, but they were like, MLK, you got to quit protesting and making all this ruckus and like demanding that the laws change and all this. You got to just like take it down a notch. You're making your own cause look bad. And MLK's response, as he's sitting in jail for being arrested 27 times for protesting against racial segregation, what his response was: justice delayed is justice denied. The time is always right to do what is right, he also said. So we're taking this seriously, and because we're so passionate about it, and because people realize the urgency of the situation as soon as they see the slaughterhouse videos, I'm confident that things will change
yeah,
faster than people think. So give it the next 10, 20, 30 years, and you're going to start seeing those small progressive cities outlawing animal products and slaughterhouses and banning meat, dairy, and eggs, and going vegan, and then other bigger cities taking it on, other states, and then a federal law, and then other countries are going to take it up as well.
I feel like that's a big part of what makes it easy not to be vegan. It's because, you don't see it. You're not in that factory. You're not stabbing, slitting this animal's throat.
Yeah. So
I feel like there's kind of a disconnect.
exactly, which is why we need more activists. The animals need us to talk about this, not just to like veganism is super important. It's crucial. But the animals need us to not just stop eating them. They need us to stand up for their rights. They need activists, which doesn't mean you have to like grab a megaphone all covered in blood like me and run into a store, right? But talk to your friends and your family about what the animals are going through. Share the slaughterhouse videos on social media. Stand up for the animals. Don't let anybody put you down or put them down, and believe in yourself and your fellow humans and the movement, because we are unstoppable and we are going to shut down every slaughterhouse, and it's not going to take that long.
I think that would be amazing.
So like
But
watch like the gay rights movement, right, for gay marriage in America. Support for gay marriage in 1996 was only 27%. Only 27% of Americans supported gay marriage in 1996. But now, just 20 years later, 25 years later, that number has tripled to 75%. 75% of Americans now support gay marriage. And in 2015, we amended the Constitution and made gay marriage a legally protected activity. And even now, most Republicans support gay marriage. 55% of Republicans now support gay marriage, which is unheard of. So times are changing.
we still have a lot of struggles. America's still racist. There's still sex trafficking. You know,
Yeah.
this like we're not great for people. I think you have to fight for everything,
I
not just
do.
animals.
I do.
You have to fight. I'm not trying to attack you. I'm
Okay,
just saying,
cool.
like, in general,
That's why I'm a human rights activist also.
people have access to better food that's not cereal and Cheez-Its or, McDonald's.
Yeah.
It's everything's kind of connected here.
Yeah, I totally agree. So yeah, I've been a human rights activist for longer than I've been an animal rights activist. And yeah, it's really important that we continue the fight against racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, capitalism, or whatever oppression of the poor we're looking at, and nationalism, all kinds of stuff. There's so much room for improvement. I think it is fair for there to be, specialists in each of these movements. So like there can be activists who focus mostly on Black Lives Matter, and hopefully once a week or whatever they'll talk about other issues also, like feminism or the homeless or animal rights. And similarly, I can focus on animal rights and every now and then talk about human rights as well. So just because they're going to be well versed. They're going to be experts in their field. I'm going to be an expert in this field. I'm focusing on the animals because they're so underrepresented in our society, and they're tortured and murdered at a very early age, just as children. And like pigs are killed when they're 6 months old, which is like killing a puppy. And also like the amount of victims is staggering. Like we raise across the world, we raise, feed, and kill 70 billion land animals every year across the world for food we don't need. 70 billion. That's 10 times the human population. And that doesn't include fish, which is in the trillions, like 2 trillion fish. All right, and all of these animals want to live as much as we do, and we have no need to do this to them. And also, the last reason why I focus mostly on animals right now is because, like, all of society is complicit in their oppression and doesn't even view them as a victim. So it's a huge problem that people need to be aware of, and educated and motivated to abolish.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to like attack you and say like that you're racist or homophobic or anything.
No, no,
I was just trying to like I hope you don't
no, I
get
didn't
that.
get that at all.
But
All right, cool. Talk to us again soon.
all right, thank you.
Bye.